He tried to take my dog, my career, my peace of mind. Now he's on my doorstep asking for the compassion he never showed me. Posted to r/true off my chest. I'm a 34-year-old veterinarian. I've been in practice for 9 years now, and I genuinely love what I do. I save lives. I comfort grieving families. I hold animals in their final moments and help them cross over with dignity. I thought I understood compassion. Then my doorbell rang last Tuesday, and I realized I didn't understand anything at all. I was making dinner, nothing fancy, just pasta, when the chime echoed through the house. My husband was upstairs on a work call, and my golden retriever, now 12 years old and graying around the muzzle, lifted her head from her bed by the fireplace. She didn't bark. She never barks. That's important to this story. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and walked to the front door. Through the frosted glass, I could see a figure. Hunched. Small-looking, somehow, though I knew the man standing there was over 6 feet tall. I opened the door. My neighbor stood on my porch. The man who had made my life a living hell for 8 years. The man who had tried to take my dog, my career, my peace of mind, and very nearly my marriage. He was crying. Not just crying, sobbing. His face was red and blotched, his eyes swollen, his whole body shaking like a leaf in a storm. He looked like he'd aged 20 years since I'd last seen him up close. "Please," he said. His voice cracked. "I know I have no right. I know what I've done. But my wife, she's dying. She has cancer. Terminal. And I don't know what to do. I can't afford help, and I heard you're in healthcare, and please. I'm begging you." I stood there with my hand on the door, the dish towel still clutched in my other hand, and I felt something I didn't expect. Nothing. Complete, absolute nothing. Like my brain had short-circuited and couldn't process what was happening. 8 years. 8 years he made my life miserable. And now he's standing on my doorstep asking for the compassion he never showed me. I should probably tell you what those 8 years looked like. The beginning. My husband and I bought our house 9 years ago. It was everything we dreamed of, a craftsman-style home with a big backyard, mature trees, a little vegetable garden, and enough space for me to finally adopt a dog. We'd been saving for years. We thought we'd found paradise. The first week, I met my neighbor. He came over while I was planting tomatoes in the backyard. Tall, silver-haired, ramrod-straight posture. He introduced himself as a retired attorney, corporate law, he said, though he'd done some litigation in his day. He told me he'd lived in his house for 32 years. He told me he took great pride in the neighborhood. He told me he expected his neighbors to maintain certain standards. I smiled and nodded and thought he was just an eccentric older man who cared about his lawn. I was so naive. The complaints started within a month. My husband had installed a small fence around the vegetable garden to keep rabbits out. It was maybe 2 feet tall. Decorative, really. My neighbor called code enforcement and claimed it violated setback requirements. It didn't. I checked before we built it, but I still had to take a day off work to meet with the inspector and prove it. My neighbor stood on his porch the entire time, watching. A week later, he filed a noise complaint about my dog. My sweet, gentle golden retriever who I'd adopted from a rescue 2 weeks prior. The complaint alleged incessant barking at all hours of the day and night. Let me be clear about something. My dog does not bark. She is the quietest animal I have ever known. She greets strangers with silent tail wags. She sleeps 18 hours a day. I have had clients joke that she must be part cat. But suddenly I was getting letters from animal control. I was being required to keep logs of my dog's behavior. I was being threatened with fines. This was just the first 2 months. The escalation. Over the next 2 years, my neighbor filed 17 complaints with various municipal agencies. He claimed my outdoor lights caused light pollution that kept him awake. He claimed my compost bin attracted vermin. He claimed the tree in my backyard, which had been there for 40 years, was dropping branches onto his property and constituted a hazard. The tree complaint turned into a lawsuit. He demanded I remove the tree entirely or pay for any damage caused by falling debris. The tree was healthy. There was no debris. But I still had to hire a lawyer. Do you know how much lawyers cost? I do now. I know exactly how much, because I spent $37,000 over 2 years defending myself against frivolous claims. My neighbor never won a single case. Not one. But that wasn't the point, was it? The point was to exhaust me. To drain me. To make every single day in my own home feel like a battle. He installed cameras pointed at my backyard. He said it was for security, but the only thing those cameras could see was my yard. My husband and I couldn't sit on our own patio without feeling watched. I started having anxiety attacks every time I pulled into my driveway. My neighbor would stand at the property line and stare. He'd take photographs of anything. My car parked on the street, my trash cans left out after pickup, my dog's water bowl on the deck. He documented everything, waiting for an excuse. The dog. The worst came in year 4. My neighbor somehow convinced a local magistrate to declare my dog a nuisance animal. I still don't understand the legal mechanics of how this happened. My lawyer said it was a perfect storm of technicalities and a judge who didn't understand animal behavior. But suddenly my dog was on a list. Suddenly I was required to keep her muzzled in public. Suddenly there was talk of removal. I fought it. Of course I fought it. I hired an animal behavior expert to testify. I gathered statements from every neighbor except one confirming that my dog was gentle, quiet, and well-behaved. I appealed. It took 14 months, but I won. The ruling was overturned. My dog was cleared. But do you know what 14 months of terror does to a person? Do you know what it's like to lie awake at night wondering if someone is going to take your dog away because of lies? I developed insomnia. I started grinding my teeth so badly I cracked a molar. I would come home from 12-hour shifts at the clinic, shifts where I held dying animals and comforted weeping families, and I would sit in my car in the driveway for 15 minutes, just trying to work up the courage to go inside. My husband nearly left me during that time. Not because he didn't love me, but because I had become someone unrecognizable. I was paranoid. I was constantly on edge. I checked the cameras obsessively. I kept binders of documentation in case I needed to defend myself again. One night my husband said to me, "This house was supposed to be our dream. He's turned it into a prison." The license. After the dog ruling was overturned, my neighbor went quiet for about 3 months. I thought maybe he'd finally given up. Then I got a letter from the State Veterinary Medical Board. Someone had filed an anonymous complaint alleging that I had improperly prescribed controlled substances to clients. The letter informed me that my license was under review pending an investigation. I knew immediately who had filed it. There's no way to prove it, of course. The complaints are anonymous by design. But I knew. The investigation took 9 months. 9 months of stress, of uncertainty, of wondering if the career I'd worked my entire adult life to build was going to be destroyed by a man who didn't like my fence. I was cleared. Completely and totally cleared. The investigators found no evidence of any wrongdoing. My prescribing practices were exemplary. My documentation was impeccable. But those 9 months, they broke something in me. The rumors. After the license investigation, I think my neighbor realized he couldn't beat me through official channels. So he tried a different approach. He started talking to the other neighbors. He told them I was a negligent pet owner. He told them I was under investigation for drug violations. He told them my husband and I were difficult people who didn't respect the community. He told them to be careful around me. Some of the neighbors believed him. I'd see people I'd waved to for years suddenly cross the street to avoid me. I stopped being invited to the annual block party. The woman 3 houses down stopped bringing me tomatoes from her garden. My neighbor had lived here for 3 decades. I was the newcomer, and he wielded that advantage like a weapon. The isolation was almost worse than the lawsuits. At least with the lawsuits, I could fight back. But how do you fight whispers? How do you prove you're not the monster someone is painting you to be? The wife. There's one thing I haven't mentioned yet, my neighbor's wife. She was nothing like him. Soft-spoken, kind, always wearing gardening gloves and a wide-brimmed hat. She'd wave to me from across the fence sometimes when her husband wasn't looking. Once, early on, she stopped me in the grocery store and apologized. "I'm sorry about my husband," she said, her eyes downcast. "He gets fixated. I've tried talking to him, but..." She trailed off. She looked tired, defeated. I told her it wasn't her fault. And I meant it. I never blamed her. How could I? She was just as much a victim of his personality as I was. She just couldn't escape. Sometimes I'd see her in the garden, alone, and she looked peaceful. Like the garden was her refuge from whatever happened inside those walls. I understood that feeling. My clinic was my refuge from what happened inside mine. His wife was always kind to me. She'd wave, try to apologize for him. She didn't deserve to be married to him, and she doesn't deserve to die like this. The quiet. 6 months ago, my neighbor went silent. No complaints. No cameras. No figures standing at the property line. The man who had been a constant menacing presence for 8 years simply stopped. At first, I was suspicious. I checked the cameras constantly, waiting for the other shoe to drop. My husband told me I was being paranoid. I told him he didn't understand. Men like my neighbor didn't just stop. But weeks passed. Then months. And nothing happened. I started to relax. I sat on my patio without flinching. I worked in my garden without documenting every moment. My dog dozed in the sunshine, and I didn't record video evidence of her silence. I thought it was finally over. Update 1. The request. So there I was, standing in my doorway, dish towel in hand, staring at the man who had tried to destroy my life. "She has stage 4 pancreatic cancer," he said, his voice breaking. "They caught it too late. They say she has maybe 2 months. Maybe less." I didn't say anything. I can't afford home nursing care. Medicare won't cover enough hours. I've been doing everything myself, but I can't keep doing this. I'm not sleeping. I'm making mistakes. Yesterday I gave her the wrong medication because I was so tired I couldn't read the label. He was shaking so hard I thought he might collapse. "I know you're not a nurse. I know you treat animals. But I don't know what I heard. I'm not thinking straight. I saw your light on, and I thought, maybe you could tell me what to do. Maybe you could help me understand the medications. Maybe you could." He couldn't finish. I stood there, looking at this man who had cost me $37,000 in legal fees. Who had tried to take my dog. Who had tried to take my career. Who had turned my neighbors against me and given me insomnia that I still take medication for. And all I felt was tired. "My husband is upstairs," I said finally. "Come inside. I'll make you some tea." Update 2. The conversation. My husband came downstairs 15 minutes later and found me sitting at the kitchen table with my neighbor. He stopped dead in the doorway, his face cycling through confusion, recognition, and then barely contained fury. "What is he doing here?" my husband asked. His voice was flat. "Dangerous." My neighbor looked up, and for the first time, I saw something like shame in his eyes. "I'll explain later," I said to my husband. "Please." My husband stared at my neighbor for a long moment. Then he turned and walked back upstairs. I heard the door to his office close, not quite a slam, but close. My neighbor looked at his hands. "Your husband has every right to hate me." "So do I said. He nodded. Didn't argue. Didn't justify. Just nodded. I realized then that he wasn't asking for forgiveness. He wasn't looking for absolution. He was simply drowning, and I happened to be standing on the shore. He's not asking for forgiveness. He's asking for help. Those are different things. I keep reminding myself of that. "Tell me about her medications," I said. Update 3. The decision. That night, after my neighbor left, my husband and I had the biggest fight of our marriage. "You cannot help this man," my husband said. "After everything he's done. After the money. After what he did to you, to us. He nearly broke us up. He nearly took our dog. He tried to destroy your career." "I know," I said. "Then why are you even considering this?" I didn't have an answer. Not a good one. Not one that made logical sense. "His wife is dying," I said finally. "His wife is dying. Not him. She's dying, and that's tragic, but he's not dying. He's just reaping what he sowed. He spent 8 years making our lives miserable, and now he's going to spend 2 months watching his wife die, and I'm supposed to feel sorry for him." "You don't have to feel sorry for him." "I'm not asking you to feel sorry for him." "Then what are you asking?" I sat down on the bed. My dog had followed me upstairs, and she rested her gray muzzle on my knee. I stroked her soft ears. "I'm not asking anything," I said. I'm trying to figure out who I am." My husband stared at me. His anger was still there, but there was something else now. Confusion. Maybe even a little fear. "What does that mean?" "It means," I took a breath. "My husband says I owe him nothing. He's right. But since when do I only help people who deserve it? I'm a vet. I help the animals, not because their owners are good people." My husband sat down beside me. He didn't say anything for a long time. "If you do this," he said finally, "you do it alone. I'm not going to pretend to be okay with it. I'm not going to shake his hand or bring casseroles. I'll support you because I love you, but don't ask me to forgive him." "I won't." "I'm not forgiving him either," I said. "I'm just not becoming him." Update 4. The help. I set boundaries. Strict ones. I told my neighbor I would come by twice a week. I would help organize his wife's medications. I would show him how to read the dosing charts, how to recognize signs of distress, how to make her comfortable. I would not provide nursing care. I would not stay overnight. I would not be his therapist, his friend, or his confessor. This is a transaction, I told him. I'm helping because your wife deserves dignity, not because of anything to do with you. He nodded. He didn't argue. He didn't try to explain himself or apologize. Somehow, that made it easier. The first time I went to his house, I was struck by how quiet it was. How dark. The curtains were drawn, and the only light came from a small lamp by the hospital bed they'd set up in the living room. His wife was asleep. She looked small, smaller than I remembered. Her face was gaunt, her skin almost translucent. But when she opened her eyes and saw me, she smiled. "The veterinarian," she whispered. "You have the sweet dog." "That's me," I said. I pulled a chair up beside her bed. "How are you feeling?" "Terrible," she said. "But everyone keeps asking me that, so I've started lying." I laughed despite myself. Even dying, she had a spark of humor. Her husband stood in the doorway, watching us. His face was unreadable. "I'll show you the medications," he said. Update 5. The breakdown. 3 weeks into this arrangement, something shifted. I had come by on a Tuesday afternoon, as usual. My neighbor met me at the door, and I could immediately tell something was wrong. His eyes were red-rimmed. His hands were shaking worse than usual. "She had a bad night," he said. She was crying. From the pain. And I didn't know what to do. I called the hospice nurse, but it took an hour for her to get here, and I just held her and she was crying and I couldn't. He broke down. He sat down on his own porch steps and sobbed into his hands, and I stood there watching him, and for the first time in 8 years, I didn't see my tormentor. I saw a broken old man who was about to lose the only person in the world who loved him. I didn't forgive him. I want to be clear about that. I didn't suddenly decide that 8 years of cruelty were washed away by grief. That's not how the world works. But I sat down beside him. And I didn't say anything. I just sat. I saw him through the window last night, sitting on his porch alone, staring at nothing. 8 years of hating this man, and now I just feel tired. Update 6. The end. She died on a Sunday morning in late October. I wasn't there when it happened. The hospice nurse called me afterward. She said it was peaceful as these things can be. She said my neighbor had been holding his wife's hand. I went over that afternoon. I don't know why. There was nothing left for me to do. But I went. He was sitting in the living room. The hospital bed was empty. Someone had already removed the medical equipment. He looked up when I came in. His face was blank. Empty. Like someone had scooped out everything that made him human. "She's gone," he said. "I know. She asked about you. At the end. She said to tell you thank you. For being kind to her." I nodded. I couldn't speak. "I was never kind to you," he said. His voice was flat. Affectless. "I know that. I don't know why I did what I did. I thought I was protecting something. The neighborhood. Property values. I don't know. It all seems stupid now." I waited for the apology. The grand speech. The moment of redemption where everything was explained and forgiven. It didn't come. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," he said. "I wouldn't forgive me." "I wasn't going to," I said. He nodded. Like that was exactly what he expected. I stayed for another few minutes. Then I left. Final update. The aftermath. It's been 3 months since she died. My neighbor is still next door. He doesn't come outside much anymore. I see him occasionally, through the window, sitting in that same chair, staring at nothing. He's lost weight. He looks like a ghost. We don't speak. There's nothing to say. My husband asked me once if I regretted helping him. I thought about it for a long time before answering. "No," I said. "But not for the reason you might think." "What's the reason?" "I didn't do it for him. I didn't even do it for his wife, really. I did it for me. Because I didn't want to become the kind of person who walks away from suffering just because the person suffering had been cruel to me. That's who he was. That's not who I want to be." My husband pulled me close. "You're a better person than me." "No. I'm just different. You had every right to stay angry. I just couldn't carry it anymore. It was too heavy. Last week, I saw something that made me stop. My neighbor was in his backyard. For the first time in months, he was outside. He was standing in his wife's garden, the one she'd tended for 30 years. The one that had gone to weeds since she got sick. He had a pair of gardening gloves in his hands. Her gloves. The ones she always wore. He wasn't crying. He was just standing there, holding them, looking at the overgrown flowers like he didn't know where to start. I watched for a moment. Then I went inside. There's no redemption here. No neat ending. He didn't apologize in some grand, cathartic moment. He didn't become a better person because his wife died. He's just a broken old man in a house full of memories, and I'm just the neighbor who helped when I didn't have to. We'll never be friends. We'll probably never speak again. But for a few weeks, in the middle of the worst time of his life, I was the person who showed up. Not because he deserved it, but because that's who I want to be. My dog is 13 now. Her muzzle is almost entirely gray. She still doesn't bark. And every night, she sleeps by my bed, peaceful and safe, because I fought for her when someone tried to take her away. She taught me something, that dog. She taught me that being gentle doesn't mean being weak. It means being strong enough to be soft. I think about that a lot these days. Edit. A lot of people are asking if I'm okay. Yes, I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. Helping him, setting those boundaries, sticking to them, choosing compassion without sacrificing my own needs. It was healing in a way I didn't expect. I don't carry the anger anymore. It's not that I forgave him. It's that I put it down. And that was enough. For anyone dealing with a difficult neighbor, or a difficult anyone, you don't have to forgive. You don't have to forget. But you do get to choose who you become in response to what people do to you. And that choice, that's yours. No one can take it away. Take care of yourselves. Hug your dogs. Here's what I learned from helping the man who tried to destroy my life. You don't have to forgive. You don't have to forget. But you do get to choose who you become in response to what people do to you. 8 years. 8 years he made my life miserable. 17 complaints to municipal agencies. $37,000 in legal fees. A lawsuit over a tree. An attempt to take my dog. An anonymous complaint to the veterinary board that put my career under review for 9 months. Rumors spread to neighbors. Anxiety attacks in my own driveway. And now he's standing on my doorstep asking for the compassion he never showed me. My husband said I owed him nothing. He was right. But since when do I only help people who deserve it? I'm a vet. I help the animals, not because their owners are good people. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He was asking for help. Those are different things. I kept reminding myself of that. His wife was always kind to me. She'd wave, try to apologize for him. She didn't deserve to be married to him, and she didn't deserve to die like this. So I set boundaries. Strict ones. Twice a week. Medication organization. No nursing care. No overnight stays. No friendship. This is a transaction, I told him. I'm helping because your wife deserves dignity. Not because of anything to do with you. He nodded. Didn't argue. Didn't justify. Somehow that made it easier. I saw him through the window one night, sitting on his porch alone, staring at nothing. 8 years of hating this man, and now I just felt tired. She died on a Sunday morning in October. Peaceful, they said. He was holding her hand. He never apologized. Not really. He said he didn't know why he did what he did. Said it all seemed stupid now. Said he wouldn't forgive himself either. There's no redemption here. No neat ending. He didn't become a better person because his wife died. He's just a broken old man in a house full of memories. And I'm just the neighbor who helped when I didn't have to. I didn't do it for him. I didn't even do it for his wife, really. I did it for me. Because I didn't want to become the kind of person who walks away from suffering just because the person suffering had been cruel to me. That's who he was. That's not who I want to be. My dog taught me something. She's 13 now, gray muzzle, still doesn't bark. She taught me that being gentle doesn't mean being weak. It means being strong enough to be soft. I don't carry the anger anymore. It's not that I forgave him. It's that I put it down. And that was enough. Being right doesn't protect you from grief. Doesn't stop you from lying awake wondering if there was a path where everyone ended up okay. Posted to r/relationship_advice. I, 27F, am a nurse. 2 weeks ago, I married the love of my life. It should have been the happiest time of my existence. Instead, I'm sitting here at 2 a.m., scrolling through wedding photos I can barely look at, wondering if I destroyed a family I'd only just become part of. My phone rang 14 days before the wedding. I was at work, finishing a 12-hour shift in the ICU, and I almost didn't answer. The number was my future sister-in-law's. We weren't exactly on speaking terms at that point, but something made me step into the break room and pick up. She was screaming. Not angry screaming, broken screaming. The kind of sound that comes from somewhere deep and raw, the kind I've heard from patients' families when I have to deliver news no one wants to hear. "You ruined everything," she kept saying. "You ruined my life. Are you happy now? Are you finally happy?" I didn't understand at first. My mind was still half in work mode, still thinking about the patient in room for whose vitals had been unstable all night. It took me a full 30 seconds to process what she was telling me through her sobs. Her fiancé had called off the wedding 2 weeks before the ceremony. After the venue was booked, the dress was altered, the invitations were sent. He'd packed a bag, left their apartment, and told her he couldn't marry someone he didn't recognize anymore. And she blamed me. Update 1. How we got here, 8 months earlier. To understand what happened, I need to take you back to February. My fiancé and I had been together for 4 years. We met in the most unromantic way possible. I was his nurse when he came in with a broken collarbone from a cycling accident. He asked for my number while still on pain medication, and I laughed and told him to ask again when he was sober. He showed up at the hospital 3 days later with coffee and a slightly embarrassed smile, and asked again. I said yes. 4 years later, on a cold February evening, he proposed on the beach where we'd had our first real date. It was perfect. We were both crying. I said yes before he even finished asking. We set the date for October 15th. It gave us 8 months to plan, which felt comfortable. We booked a venue almost immediately, a restored barn outside the city that we both fell in love with. Put down a deposit. Started building a guest list. Everything felt right. 2 weeks after our engagement, his family threw us a small celebration dinner at his parents' house. His sister was there, let's call her the sister-in-law, even though she wasn't yet. She'd always been polite to me, though we'd never been close. She's 3 years older than my fiancé, the firstborn, the daughter who'd always been doted on. Not in a spoiled way, exactly, but you could tell she was used to being the center of attention. That night, she seemed distracted. Quiet. She barely congratulated us, just a quick hug and a murmured, "So happy for you," that didn't quite reach her eyes. I noticed, but I didn't think much of it. 3 days later, my fiancé called me at work. "She's engaged," he said. His voice was strange, not happy, not sad, just confused. His sister had announced her own engagement. Her boyfriend of 11 months had proposed the night before, completely out of the blue. And she wanted to get married in October. October 1st. 2 weeks before my wedding. At first, I thought it was wonderful. 2 weddings in the family, both in the fall, both celebrating love. I called her to congratulate her, genuinely happy for her despite the timing. That's when things started to unravel. "We need to talk about the dates," she said, her voice already carrying an edge I didn't recognize. "October is going to be crazy for everyone. 2 weddings in 2 weeks. People will be exhausted. They'll have to choose." "I don't think they'll have to choose," I said carefully. "They're 2 weeks apart. People can attend both. But the attention will be split. The excitement will be diluted." She paused. "I think you should move your date." I laughed. I actually laughed, because I thought she was joking. We already booked everything. The venue, the caterer, the photographer. It's all locked in. So unbook it. Push to next spring. Or next October. That's a year away. I'm his sister. Her voice hardened. "Family comes first. You can wait another year." I stood in my apartment, phone pressed to my ear, and felt the first cold trickle of understanding that this wasn't going to be a simple conversation. "I'm not moving my wedding," I said quietly. "We were engaged first. We set our date first. Moving would cost us thousands in deposits we'd lose, and there's no guarantee we'd even find a new venue. So this is about money. You're putting money over family." "I'm not putting anything over anyone. I'm keeping the plans we already made." She hung up. The campaign started the next day. She called her parents first. Then her aunts, her grandmother, her cousins. Within a week, half the family had been told a version of events where I was a selfish outsider who refused to accommodate family, who was stealing her wedding month, who didn't care about anyone but myself. His mother called us, voice careful and diplomatic. Could you maybe just consider it? Just to keep the peace. My fiancé, God, I love him for this, took the phone from me. Mom, we were engaged first. We set our date first. We're not moving our wedding because she decided to get engaged 2 weeks later and wants the same month. That's not how this works. She's very upset, sweetheart. Then she can pick a different date. November is beautiful. So is September. So is literally any other month. But his sister didn't want any other month. She wanted October, and specifically, she wanted to be first. The firstborn. The first daughter married. It mattered to her in ways I didn't fully understand then. The family split. His father quietly sided with us, though he tried not to make waves. 2 of his aunts thought we were being reasonable. His grandmother, who I'd always gotten along with, started treating me with a coolness that hurt more than I expected. She's always been like this, my fiancé told me one night, when I was crying in his arms after another tense family dinner. She needs to be first at everything. Best grades. Best presents at Christmas. Now first married. But that doesn't mean we have to rearrange our lives for her. What if this ruins your relationship with your family? He pulled back to look at me. If my family can't understand that we planned first and she's being unreasonable, that's their problem, not ours. I'm marrying you. You're going to be my family. You come first. I held on to those words like a lifeline. Update 2. The unraveling. What happened next is something I only pieced together later, through conversations with my husband and whispered confessions from family members who felt guilty about staying silent. My sister-in-law threw herself into wedding planning with an intensity that bordered on manic. While I was carefully budgeting, researching vendors, and spacing out our purchases, she was spending. Wildly. Recklessly. She booked a venue twice the size of ours, a historic estate with manicured gardens and a price tag that made my stomach drop when I heard about it. She ordered a custom designer gown that cost more than my entire wedding dress budget. She hired a celebrity florist, a live orchestra, a wedding planner who specialized in luxury experiences. Every choice she made seemed designed to outdo whatever I was doing. If I mentioned we were having a 3-tier cake, she'd announce she was having a 7-tier sculptural masterpiece. If I said we'd hired a DJ, she was suddenly booking a 12-piece band. Her fiancé, I learned later, was becoming increasingly alarmed. They'd been together less than a year. They were still figuring out whose apartment they'd eventually move into. And suddenly she was spending money they didn't have on a wedding that seemed to be more about proving something than celebrating their relationship. She started talking about our wedding in terms of yours, he told me months later, after everything fell apart. It was never our special day. It was, we'll have better flowers than them, or, our venue makes theirs look like a backyard party. She was planning a competition, not a marriage. He tried to talk to her. Multiple times. He suggested they scale back, focus on what really mattered, maybe push the date to give themselves more time to save money and plan thoughtfully. Every conversation ended in a fight. She said I was just like you, he admitted. That I didn't understand family. That I was siding with them, against her. He wasn't siding with anyone. He was just watching the woman he loved transform into someone consumed by rivalry, and he didn't know how to stop it. The tension bled into every family gathering. Easter dinner was a disaster. My sister-in-law made pointed comments about her more elegant venue every time someone asked about my plans. Mother's Day was worse. She interrupted my fiancé and me giving his mother our gift to announce that she just upgraded her flower package to something truly spectacular. I started dreading events I used to look forward to. I'd sit across from her at dinner tables, feeling her eyes on me, and wonder what I'd done wrong. I'd gotten engaged. I'd set a date. I'd refused to change it. Was that really so terrible? Some nights I'd lie awake and run through the scenario where I had agreed to move my wedding. Push to next spring. Let her have October. Would it have been so bad? But then I'd remember, the venue I loved would have been lost. The deposits, gone. The photographer I'd spent months finding would have been booked elsewhere. The guests who'd already arranged travel, taken time off work, marked their calendars, all inconvenienced because a woman I barely knew decided 2 weeks after my engagement that she deserved my month. I kept coming back to the same question. Why should I have had to? Update 3. The collapse. October 1st was supposed to be her day. I wasn't there when her fiancé ended things. I only know what I've been told, by my husband, by family members, by her fiancé himself in one brutally honest conversation weeks later. 2 weeks before the wedding, he came home from work to find her on the phone with the florist, screaming. Actually screaming, about how the centerpieces needed to be more impressive than anything her brother's girlfriend was having. Not more beautiful. Not more meaningful. More impressive. Better. Bigger. He sat down on the couch and watched her pace their apartment, this woman he'd fallen in love with, who used to laugh at his terrible jokes and cry at sad movies and tell him that all she wanted was a simple life with someone who loved her. Now she was red-faced, veins standing out in her neck, threatening to destroy a small business owner because her flower arrangements weren't ostentatious enough. When she hung up, he told her they needed to talk. What followed was a 3-hour conversation that ended with him packing a bag. "I don't recognize you anymore," he said. She told the family this part herself, though I don't think she meant to make him sound so reasonable. "The woman I proposed to wanted a small wedding on the beach. Remember? You said you didn't need anything fancy, just me and you and the people who matter. Now you're spending money we don't have, fighting with everyone around you, and I don't think it's about us anymore. It's about beating them. They started this," she said. "They set their date first just to. They got engaged first. They planned first. You're the one who decided to turn this into a competition, and I can't marry someone who sees our wedding as a battle to win." He left that night. That's when she called me, screaming through her tears that I'd ruined everything. I stood in the hospital break room, my hands shaking, trying to understand how any of this was my fault. I'd set a date. I'd kept it. I hadn't asked her to spend beyond her means. I hadn't forced her to book a bigger venue or hire a celebrity florist or turn every conversation into a comparison. I hadn't asked her to neglect her relationship in favor of outdoing mine. "I'm so sorry," I said, and I meant it. Despite everything, despite the months of hostility and the passive-aggressive comments and the family members who'd stopped speaking to me, I was genuinely sorry her heart was broken. "This wasn't what I wanted." "Then you should have moved your wedding." Her voice was ice. "You could have given me this. You could have let me have something for once in my life, but you were too selfish. And now everything is ruined. I hope you're happy." She hung up before I could respond. I stood there in the break room for a long time, staring at my phone, feeling something heavy settle in my chest that hasn't fully lifted since. Update 4. The wedding that was. My wedding was beautiful. Everything went exactly as we'd planned. The October weather was perfect, crisp and golden, the trees around our venue blazing with autumn color. My dress fit perfectly. My makeup didn't run despite the tears. My father walked me down the aisle to a song we'd chosen together, and I looked at my now husband waiting for me at the altar, and for one perfect moment, everything felt right. Then I noticed the empty seats. My sister-in-law wasn't there. Neither was one of her aunts, or her grandmother, who'd told my husband's parents she couldn't support this wedding under the circumstances. My husband's cousin came but barely spoke to us, spending the reception in a corner texting. My mother-in-law smiled too much and cried too much and kept excusing herself to freshen up in ways that told me she was checking her phone, probably fielding calls from her devastated daughter. I walked through the reception in my beautiful dress, accepting congratulations from guests who didn't know about the family fractures happening beneath the surface, and I felt like a fraud. Like I was playing the role of happy bride while something ugly festered just out of sight. My wedding was beautiful. It was everything I dreamed of. And I spent half of it wondering if I'd destroyed my future family. That sentence has been running through my head for 2 weeks now. It doesn't get less true. The photos came back last week. They're gorgeous. The photographer captured everything perfectly. The way my husband looked at me during our vows, the way my mother covered her mouth during the first dance, the way the sunset painted everything gold during the outdoor cocktail hour. I've looked at them maybe twice. Every time I do, I see the gaps. The grandmother who wasn't there. The empty seats in the family section. The tight smile on my mother-in-law's face that wasn't quite happy, despite her best efforts. My husband tells me I'm being too hard on myself. He tells me that his sister made her own choices, that I'm not responsible for her spending or her behavior or the way her fiancé responded to it. He tells me that her breakdown wasn't caused by me keeping my wedding date. It was caused by her inability to let anyone else have something without trying to take it. She's always been this way, he says. When we were kids, if I got something she didn't have, she'd throw tantrums until our parents either took it away from me or got her something better. They usually got her something better. They trained her to believe the world would rearrange itself for her, and when it didn't, she couldn't handle it. I understand this intellectually. I know that I didn't make her rush. I didn't make her spend money she didn't have. I just refused to rearrange my life around her timeline. That's not the same as causing her pain. But it doesn't stop me from feeling responsible anyway. Update 5. The aftermath. It's been 3 weeks since the wedding. Here's where things stand. My sister-in-law hasn't spoken to me since that phone call. She's staying with her parents, spending most of her time in her childhood bedroom. From what I've heard through my husband, she's barely eating, barely sleeping, barely leaving the house. Her ex-fiancé has tried to reach out a few times, but she won't return his calls. My mother-in-law is trying to play peacemaker, which mostly means she's exhausted all the time and tiptoeing around everyone. She came to our housewarming dinner. We moved into our first house together last week, but spent half the night looking at her phone. I don't blame her. Her daughter is falling apart. How is she supposed to focus on anything else? My father-in-law is probably the most supportive. He pulled me aside after the wedding and said, "You didn't do anything wrong. She needs help, real help, professional help, and she needed it long before you came along. This isn't about you." It never was. I want to believe him. Some days I do. I've started seeing a therapist. Not because I think I'm crazy, but because I can't stop replaying everything in my head. Every decision, every conversation, every moment where I could have made a different choice. I keep asking myself, was the date worth it? We could have waited. We could have moved. But why should we have had to? My therapist says that question doesn't have an answer, or at least not the kind of answer I'm looking for. She says I'm trying to find a logical solution to an emotional problem, trying to find the right choice in a situation where every choice had costs. She asked me once, if you had moved your wedding and she'd still fallen apart, maybe over something else, maybe over the fact that you exist, maybe over her fiancé eventually seeing the same patterns, would you blame yourself for that too? I didn't have an answer. Her fiancé, ex-fiancé, called me last week. I almost didn't pick up, but something made me answer. "I need you to know something," he said. "What happened between me and her wasn't about the wedding date. Not really. The date was just a trigger. It exposed something that was already there." "What do you mean?" "She's always needed to be first. Best. Most special. When we started dating, I thought it was charming, this confident woman who knew what she wanted. But underneath that, there was this fragility. This terror of not being enough. And when you got engaged first, when you wouldn't move your date, it was like you held up a mirror and she couldn't stand what she saw." I didn't know what to say to that. Her fiancé told her she'd become someone he didn't recognize. I wonder if she blames me for that too. I said it out loud, the thought that had been haunting me, and there was a long pause on the other end of the line. "She blames everyone but herself," he said finally. "That's the problem. That's what I couldn't live with. I'm not sure she's ever going to see her own role in this." We talked for another 20 minutes. He apologized for the position I'd been put in. I apologized for, I'm not sure what. The whole situation. The pain he was in. The pain she was in. The way everything had splintered. I had dinner with my husband's grandmother last night. She was the one who'd refused to come to the wedding, the one who'd sided firmly with my sister-in-law from the beginning. She called and asked to meet, and I said yes because I'm trying to rebuild bridges, even when I'm not sure I should have to. We sat in a quiet restaurant, and she told me about her own wedding 60 years ago. Her sister had wanted the same month, the same venue. Their mother had made them flip a coin. "I won," she said. "My sister never forgave me. We barely spoke for the last 40 years of her life. She died thinking I'd stolen something from her. I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand something." She leaned forward. "There was nothing you could have done. If you'd moved your wedding, she would have found something else. The flowers. The dress. The honeymoon. Some people need someone to blame, and once they pick you, you're never getting off that hook. Then why didn't you come to the wedding?" She was quiet for a long moment. "Because I know what it feels like to be the one who won. And I know what it feels like to watch your sister fall apart because you did. I thought maybe if I stayed away, it would help. It would show her that someone was on her side. That might help her heal." "Did it?" "No." She stirred her coffee. "Nothing helps except her deciding to help herself. I'm sorry I missed your wedding. I'm sorry I made you feel like you'd done something wrong. You didn't. You just existed, and that was enough to shatter someone who was already broken." Reflection. It's been a month now. I'm married to a wonderful man who loves me unconditionally, who stood by me through everything, who has never once wavered in his support. Our house is coming together slowly. We've painted the bedroom, set up the kitchen, started making it feel like home. We're planning our first holiday season as a married couple, making lists of traditions we want to start. And yet, there's a shadow over everything. A weight I can't shake. My husband says I did nothing wrong. Most days I believe him. Some days I'm not sure. My sister-in-law has started therapy. That's what I heard last week, at least. She's working with someone who specializes in, I'm not sure exactly, anxiety, identity issues, whatever it is that made her feel like she needed to be first at everything or she didn't exist at all. I hope it helps her. I really do. Despite everything she said to me, despite the months of hostility and the way she tried to turn the family against me, I don't want her to suffer. I never wanted any of this. Her ex-fiancé is moving to another city. He told me that in our last phone call, said he needs a fresh start, somewhere without all the memories. I understand that. I wish I could do the same sometimes. Last night, I looked at the wedding photos again. Really looked, for the first time. And mixed in with all the complicated feelings, the guilt, the sadness, the sense that I'm standing on a foundation that's never quite stopped shaking, there was something else. Joy. Because my husband is looking at me in those photos like I'm the only person in the world. Because my father is crying in the one where he gives me away. Because my friends are laughing in the candid shots, and the sunset really was that beautiful, and we promised each other forever under a sky painted gold and pink. It happened. Despite everything, it happened. And it was mine. I don't know how to end this. There's no neat conclusion, no moment where everything resolves and everyone moves on. My sister-in-law is still not speaking to me. Some family members are still cold. The holidays are going to be complicated, possibly for years. I got what I wanted. I kept my date. I had my wedding. I married the love of my life exactly when and where we'd planned. But the cost was higher than I expected. Not because I was wrong, I don't think I was wrong, but because being right doesn't protect you from grief. Doesn't stop you from lying awake wondering if there was a path where everyone ended up okay. Doesn't stop you from looking at your wedding photos and feeling proud and sad at the same time. I didn't make her rush. I didn't make her spend money she didn't have. I just refused to rearrange my life around her timeline. That's true. It doesn't make any of this easier. Final note. If you're in a similar situation, if someone is demanding you rearrange your life for their convenience and you're wondering whether you're selfish for refusing, I can tell you this. Stand your ground. Make the choices that are right for your life. You can't control how other people react, and you can't save someone from themselves by sacrificing your own happiness. But also, be prepared for it to hurt. Be prepared for the victory to feel hollow sometimes. Be prepared to question yourself even when you know you're right. And maybe most importantly, find people who will tell you the truth. A partner who stands by you. A therapist who helps you untangle the guilt from the reality. Friends who remind you that you're allowed to exist, to thrive, to have good things without apologizing for them. I'm still working on believing I deserve this happiness without conditions. I'm still learning to look at my wedding photos and just feel joy, without the shadow of everything that fell apart around them. But I'm getting there. One day at a time. Edit. Thank you all for the responses. I didn't expect this to get so much attention. To answer a few common questions. Yes, my husband has read this and supports me posting it. No, I'm not planning to reach out to my sister-in-law directly. My therapist thinks that's something that should come from her when and if she's ready. And yes, I'm okay. Complicated, but okay. Some of you have been through similar situations and shared your stories, and that's meant more than I can say. Knowing I'm not alone in this, that other people have stood their ground and felt guilty about it even when they were right, helps more than I expected. To those asking if I regret anything, I regret that it happened this way. I don't regret my choices. Those are different things. Thanks for listening. Blue Heart. Here's what I learned from keeping my wedding date. Being right doesn't protect you from grief. I didn't make her rush. I didn't make her spend money she didn't have. I didn't make her turn every conversation into a competition, every choice into a battle, every moment into a chance to prove she was better than me. I just refused to rearrange my life around her timeline. That's not the same as causing her pain. I know that intellectually. But knowing something and feeling it are different things. Her ex-fiancé told me the wedding date wasn't really the issue. It was a trigger that exposed something already there. When you got engaged first, when you wouldn't move your date, it was like you held up a mirror and she couldn't stand what she saw. She'd always needed to be first. Best. Most special. When she couldn't be, something broke. Not because of me, because the fragility was always there, waiting for something to shatter it. My husband's grandmother told me something that haunts me. She won a coin flip for her wedding date 60 years ago. Her sister never forgave her. They barely spoke for 40 years. Her sister died still believing something had been stolen from her. There was nothing you could have done, she said. If you'd moved your wedding, she would have found something else. Some people need someone to blame, and once they pick you, you're never getting off that hook. I want to believe that. Some days I do. My wedding was beautiful. It was everything I dreamed of. And I spent half of it wondering if I destroyed my future family. The photos came back gorgeous. My husband looking at me during our vows. My father crying as he gave me away. The sunset painting everything gold. But when I look at them, I see the gaps too. The grandmother who wasn't there. The empty seats in the family section. The tight smile on my mother-in-law's face. I keep asking myself, was the date worth it? We could have waited. We could have moved. But why should we have had to? My therapist says that question doesn't have an answer. She asked me, if you had moved your wedding and she'd still fallen apart, maybe over something else, maybe over the fact that you exist, would you blame yourself for that too? I didn't have an answer. My husband says I did nothing wrong. Most days I believe him. Some days I'm not sure. She's in therapy now. Working on whatever made her feel like she needed to be first at everything or she didn't exist at all. I hope it helps her. Despite everything she said, despite the months of hostility, I don't want her to suffer. I never wanted any of this. Stand your ground. Make the choices that are right for your life. You can't save someone from themselves by sacrificing your own happiness. But be prepared for it to hurt. Be prepared for the victory to feel hollow sometimes. Be prepared to question yourself even when you know you're right. I got what I wanted. I kept my date. I married the love of my life exactly when and where we'd planned. The cost was higher than I expected. Not because I was wrong, but because being right doesn't stop you from lying awake wondering if there was a path where everyone ended up okay. I regret that it happened this way. I don't regret my choices. Those are different things.